Planning their revenge in the northwest lands of Chill are Naggarond, led by Malekith, son and rightful heir of the legendary Anarian. Being the original Dark Elf Lord, Malekith has seen every DLC, many of which have vastly changed his local landscape. But after the final DLC, it's time to see if Malekith is still Witch King or has been. Welcome to Elven Plot Armor, and this is the faction strategy and rating guide for Naggarond. To assess the faction, we're going to assign them a 5-star rating to 5 key criteria, then total up to a final percentage. This guide was made in tandem with community feedback and playtesting to provide a balanced perspective. Starting off with strategy, which assesses the strength and the faction's control and manipulation of the campaign map. Dark Elves are a very strong race, being able to dedicate their settlements to economy while making their Black Arcs mobile doomstack generators, granting them unrivaled reach along the coastlines. Dark Elves have to deal with loyalty, which inexperienced players often loathe, but not Naggarond, who get +2 loyalty for all new recruits, granting a great deal of flexibility when raising and collapsing multiple lords to deal with your many spot fires that will likely arise due to your uncooperative workforce. It's worth noting that any lord that's a higher level than Malekith will feed their ambition and lose loyalty, but Malekith is undeniably one of the strongest characters in the entire game, so if he's not your leading lord, then you're doing something wrong and should report to the torture posts immediately. But Naggarond's ability that offsets this is Malekith's distribution of experience between all his lords, meaning that your expansion won't be short on capable leaders and you'll be able to get those juicy level 12 skills on your confederated lords even quicker. And Malekith will have no trouble confederating the whole gang thanks to a relations bonus with his dear mother, as well as skills that improve relations. If you haven't seen my Dark Elf Mastery Guide, I highly recommend that, which will run through all the advanced techniques to be able to dominate on Legendary, because now it's time to focus on the legendary lord himself, Malekith. After forcibly removing the Phoenix King who unrightfully held his crown, Malekith strode into the sacred fires to be anointed like his father, Anarian. But the sacred flames also thought he was kind of a dick, and his epic transformation turned into more of a cremation. So Morathi wrote her boy a sick note and mailed him off to Hotek. Hotek would fuse enchanted armor to his charred skin, leaving him a walking husk of hatred and pain, and Morathi would graciously reward Hotek by poisoning him. Dark Elf friends are the best. Being able to function again, Malekith decided to double down on the psychopath thing, bargaining his soul with forbidden gods, resulting in him being the strongest warrior caster in the entire game. When leveling up Malekith, start with the obligatory 3 points in Dreaded Slaver before getting Lightning Strike. Remember, the more fights means more experience in captives. From here you can focus on melee, but honestly he's fine even on Legendary, and going down the magic line to unlock Soul Stealer will help you heal away any damage anyway. Unlock Arcane Conduit, picking up Blade Wind and Doombolt along the way to be your main damage dealers, and once you hit level 12, unlock all of Malekith's unique skills because they're all amazing. Well, the Tyrant line at least. He's similar to Tyrion in the way he has a meme skill tree that's useful for war on the world, but playing sensibly, I can only recommend the Tyrant line because it's incredible. Motivation through fear stabilizes and bolsters your slave economy, and the other amazing skills help bolster your economy and confederations. From here, Malekith is very flexible. In addition to his amazing combat prowess, Malekith's personal trait also gives him 50% reduced upkeep to all the basic units and Blackguard of Naggarond, most notably Dread Spears and Dark Shards, which will be your workhorses for the early to mid game. Sheath Master will help you get great mileage out of your Dark Shards, and you can even decide to double down on Dark Shards and make Malekith a discount army that can really punch up. Working your way up, you can invest in Shades, Monsters, or even Blackguard of Naggarond and utilize his 50% discount. Invest points in melee defense and resistances so he can throw down, especially after level 22 when you put him on Seraphon, his Black Dragon. The Dark Elves are a strong race, so place a powerhouse lord at the front of a faction that can turn most of their early strengths up to 11, and you're able to overcome most of the race's weaknesses. Next we have the Geography rating, assessing the faction's starting location and navigation of the surrounds. Malekith starts in the Iron Mountains, a 4-settlement province immediately above a second potential 4-settlement province, so your worker provinces are taken care of. To your east is the always dependable Crone Hellebron, You can confederate her turn 2, but it's easier to allow her to build up Grond and then take it at tier 3 because there's a freaking gold mine there. Regardless, leave this as your eastern border because south is where you should be headed. There are several great buildings in Malekith's province alone that will help buff your faction. Simply put, his starting location is excellent. The initial Skaven are easy to clear, providing you with workers, and then either non-aggression or just simply sack and raise Mung because the Frozen Glacier province is horrible, undefendable, and a waste of time. Don't focus here. Instead, focus on expanding south. Conquer Naggarond or consider confederating them, which allows you to initiate diplomacy with Marathi, but be aware of the Beastmen hordes here. Be ready to pounce on them quickly because they're the only faction that can outmaneuver you in the mountains through the underway, which will be the soft underbelly of your empire. So make sure you maneuver around them and take them out quickly. There is a ton of corruption here, so you'll need lots of Shrines of Cain to deal with it, but that building was on your shopping list anyway because this provides extra hags and assassins at tier 3. You will have revolts, but Dark Elves enjoy revolts probably more than any other faction, as this provides extra experience and captives to stuff back into those pens, especially when your capital is a port and guardable by a black arc, which Naggarond can do, so it gets big points there. Your logical expansion will send you south until you reach the Titan Peaks, where you'll want to use scouts and ambush stands to handle Lithanar, but taking his territory is a great springboard into Ulthuan, where you can either assist or confederate the Cult of Pleasure, because from here, defeating the High Elves should be your focus. So I wouldn't recommend expanding south past the Titan Peaks until you've subdued or conquered Ulthuan. Ulthuan is incredibly lucrative, so there's no need to stretch yourself thin, and it's often more profitable to burn down any red uninhabitable settlements along the way and recolonize them later so you can focus on this glorious island. The only con to Naggarond's very generous geography is the Chaos Invasion, which comes from 5 preset locations along the northern border. Of course, always have tier 3 walls, and even if you know you're going to lose, still fight and use the Dark Riders in your garrisons to vanguard deploy and destroy their artillery, which will really slow their advance. Consider setting up ambushes in the walkways of the Iron Mountain and try to avoid losing any of these, as this will really destabilize your worker economy. So quick raise stacks from your Black Arcs and use your armor piercing forte to win the day. Funnily enough, Blackguard can actually be useful here because you can hire them in a single turn from the Black Tower. But remember, you only need 3 or 4, so focus on shades and magic to win the day. Naggarond's geography simply affords them so much control. Not only is it resource rich, it's also surrounded with peninsulas, allowing for excellent naval access and reach, meaning their capitals can be garrisoned affordably with Black Arcs, and this territory simply serves the Dark Elf strengths in defensible territory, so once you're established, you'll never feel threatened to the point you'll be thanking Chaos for making it interesting. Next we have Diplomacy, assessing the faction's friendly and hostile constraints and ability to control their engagements. Malekith is abrasive, to say the least. I mean, we're talking about a guy who poisoned the king who took his rightful place and expected the other princes to believe it was a suicide. Yes, Malekith is loved by few, hated by many, but respected by all. The surrounding minor factions will detest you, but they're very unlikely to declare war as long as your military and balance of power are respectable. Don't disband your starting units, as they actually boost your balance of power substantially, but Malekith's start is so strong it's unlikely anyone will have the nerve to attack you. Avoid alliances with the minor factions and use them as buffer states by signing all treaties. Typically avoid alliances in general, except for Malleus Darkblade, who you start with a military alliance with, and honestly this works out really well. Malleus will love you by being dragged into all your conflicts, and he doesn't venture out very far from his island, so turn 1, simply join his initial war and just keep checking the diplomacy screen every turn, and he'll confederate when he's weak, usually sometime between turn 10 and 50. Crone Hellebron can be confederated turn 2, but as previously mentioned, it's better to confederate her after she's leveled up Grond for you. To the east, Rakath will start expanding into Marienburg around turn 20, so you may see this as opportune, but for newer players I recommend laying running low and get him before turn 20 to restrict his holdings to Albion. Remember, undiscovered factions can't declare war on you, so it's easiest to send an agent to discover him and just watch his settlement number on the diplomacy screen. Naggarond get a faction bonus to relations with Morathi, and even then she is still a pain to confederate, but rather than obsessing over it, just wait and enjoy the fact she's wrecking the High Elves, taking their holdings, and just check the diplomacy screen every turn. She'll eventually agree when she's either wounded or threatened, so just continually bribe her and drag her into as many wars as possible to keep the pressure up. If she's obstructing your expansion, you can always conquer Norska to the east or Lustria to the south, and then acquire her and Ulthuan later. Her faction buffs will make acquiring any other holdouts an absolute breeze. Another very overlooked strength of starting with Naggarond is very similar to starting with Tyrion, is that you don't need to confederate Malekith. Every other Dark Elf faction must deal with both Malekith and Morathi's reluctance, but Naggarond begin with Malekith and get a relations bonus with Morathi, making this faction by far the best confederator. Any Tomb Kings you encounter are so neutral it doesn't really matter, so just pay them to join wars in common with you and then crush them when it suits you. Adopt a similar policy with the Sisters of Twilight, where you should avoid war until ready and send in a couple of armies to put them away quickly in a couple of turns. Just remember, never underestimate the Wood Elves in their forests. Dark Shards with shields are the best counter to them, and Naggarith's Shadow Warriors. So while Naggarond is short on friends, they're also short on enemies that viably threaten them, and even those that hate them are really unlikely to turn on them. The reality is, Malekith is very well buffered and supported and can get on the good side with any other Dark Elf superpower. Once you confederate Malice, you can even start expanding in the southwest, though I'd recommend just build walls on the Dragon Isles and use this as a perpetual tax haven. Overall, Naggarond can't make many relationships, but the few they can really count to help you control your engagements and securing a dominant position to keep you rightfully feared. Next we have the military rating, and as for performance on the battlefield, out of the box the Dark Elves really aren't a powerhouse. They have great offensive abilities and armor-piercing crossbows, but they have several weaknesses in their defense, but these are largely negated late game, with Black Arcs able to insta-raise armies of Shades, Hydras and Dragons, which you can have all buffed to insane levels thanks to research and Lord skills. While getting to this point where you are a superpower could be difficult, Malekith's discount to Dread Spears and Dark Shards means you're paying next to nothing for your bread and butter units, which will support you well past the mid-game, freeing up funds for a second army or additional Black Arc troops. This provides incredible early game flexibility, and his buff to Blackguard is something you could scoff at, but as previously mentioned, they serve as a viable crisis unit to help counter chaos when hired from the Iron Mountains. On the battlefield, Malekith himself starts strong and just gets stronger, being able to outduel most early enemies and lay waste entire armies with his magic. His Black Dragon mount is incredibly strong, and on top of this he also starts with a Fire Sorceress, the most destructive unit in the entire Dark Elf arsenal, so you'll be getting used to winning very quickly, especially when you put her on a horse and later a Pegasus. For magical items, Malekith not only gets 4, but they are all incredibly good. Starting with the Armor of Midnight, you will get this automatically from acquiring captives, and this provides a massive increase to your defense, as well as -2 off your recovery time, meaning you can easily disband Malekith and raise him in only 3 turns if required. The 3 additional items all require completion of a quest battle each, and they buff your combat skills, help you disrupt enemy magic, as well as increase your chance of acquiring magical items. The battles are unlocked after completing a series of very rudimentary Dark Elf tasks available at rank 6, 10 and 14. As always, I'm demonstrating with a very basic army, though I would recommend your Sorceress on her Pegasus. The circlet battle is very easy, simply form up, take the hill, and then rotate left and then right to take out the 2 reinforcing armies. For the second battle, make sure you only approach with Malekith and your caster, and then retreat the army backwards because reinforcements will come on the right hand flank. So form slightly behind this, and on the right hand side, fight off the first army, and then shower the reinforcements in the choke points. The final spell shield battle is by far the hardest because it's an ambush. Immediately form your lines up to be facing the right. Put your spearmen at the front of this formation because this is where the majority of the force will come. On the rear of your formation, spin your archers around to shower the incoming flanking army, and make sure you send your caster and Malekith up ahead to deal damage and slow the advance. Overall, being able to run a budget army spearheaded by a powerhouse lord and sorceress, Naggarond are able to make up for any Dark Elf shortcomings in the early game. The nearby network of ports provides arguably the best Black Ark support in the entire game, and endless military reach. Finally, we have the economy rating, which measures the faction's ability to prosper and generate resources, and boy do the Dark Elves have no trouble here. Without abusing cheese and exploits, their loot and captive driven economy is the strongest straight out of the gate, and the ability to reduce cost thanks to their Black Arks further compounds on this. Being able to garrison ports with discount armies means your funds can go directly into your military or infrastructure, and the daily revolts end up developing you rather than depriving you. Both Haganeth and Hagwraith have gold mines, meaning it's impossible to step outside and not be drowning in money. The most expensive points in Naggarond's campaign are around turn 90 and maybe 140 when you need to fund your welcoming party to greet the armies of chaos. But outside of these occurrences, Malekith's buffs to the economy will provide you with a resource-rich empire and never short of workers' provinces, because the Iron Mountains, the Black Flood, and ideally the Titan Peaks and eventually Evres will effectively leave you with unlimited money. The innate weakness of Dark Elves is without war there is no influx of workers, but the geographic position means there's no shortage of major or minor powers to wage war on. Combined with Malekith's military discounts gives you a well-resourced, perfect economy. Overall, the Dark Elves require much more finesse to maximise than their do-gooder counterparts, but Naggarond allow these critical areas to be dialed up to 11, providing a lucrative kingdom, rich in resources, and plentiful imports to impose your naval advantage. From day one till the end of the life cycle, Malekith has stood tall, and the signature Dark Elf King lands a mighty 93% overall. And that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have found this entertaining or helpful, please consider giving it a like and subscribe. It all helps out. Any questions, ask in the comments. I answer everything. If you'd like more, I highly recommend the race and hero mastery guides or one of the several walkthroughs on the channel. This is Plot Armor, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.